team. How you doing, Sleegi?
It's been a while since I've seen your beautiful faces. I'm happy that RLCS is back. I think many of us are happy that RLCS is back in season. Kronovi, how you doing, handsome?
I'm, doing good. I'm just as excited, honestly. Like I've been so bored all
Mm.
of January with no RLCS and like ranked was just not hitting. So finally we get some fun matches to watch. So I'm so stoked to be here.
Yeah, some insane matches this weekend. A lot of things happening. Of course, K Corp walking off with the victory. And that's and it was a full French final. I don't know if you guys caught that, but yeah,
Hmm.
full French final this time.
I blame Stumpy.
Um, yep, typical stuff for Europe. You know, you expect to see it. And the phone lines are going to be open. Everyone, if you want to call in, give us your opinion of this weekend. Our Discord slate is open right now, so feel free to start filing in so we can take some calls. My opening take from this weekend, guys, is do Oxygen have a winning problem? And that's something I wanted to bring up with you guys because I cast for Oxygen, so I'm somewhat biased, and I think that team has a lot of potential. And you know, K Corp to me, when they came in this weekend, I thought that they were the favorites with all the roster moves going on. Coming in, like, they seem to dominate regionals. It seems to be their thing. So I was like, okay, here they come. Here comes the French K Corp with all the roster moves. They're probably gonna come in, dominate regional one. And I was like, oh, maybe Oxygen can sneak in there. Maybe they made that roster move. They add Rise, right? Clutch factor, late game guy, scorer. You want him to come in. And clearly, to me, Jorias and Archie have made a statement. We want to win a major. We want to contend for the world championship, right? They make that roster move. And then again, fourth place this weekend. I'm not concerned because it's just the week one, right? This is their first regional. And, I love the team. I think they're going to be fine. But, is there a concern there for you guys? And I'll probably start with Sleegi because we haven't heard Sleegi yet. But is there a concern, Sleegi, for you from that Oxygen side, whether or not they can get to the top with Archie and Jorias? I guess I'd say Jorias the most because he's the player that I'd say has been at the top the longest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally really too concerned at the moment. I mean, we saw them do pretty well during the group stages. I mean, they had that one hiccup against BDS in Game 5 that, honestly, I feel like that series could have gone either way. And then today, I mean, throughout the playoffs, especially through the bracket, I mean, I thought they did reasonably well. I mean, we saw them take down Sonics pretty convincingly. The game against Vitality, I mean, you're going to 7. When series hit 7, it's all bets are off at that point. It's who can put together a better enough 5 minutes. And today, Vitality, I mean, they just had the better game in them. Again, it goes over. I mean, they had 3 overtimes in a row. I mean, it's back and forth. So I don't know if it's necessarily that they have a winning problem. I just think that right now that parity in the EU is kind of starting to pick back up a little bit. We're starting to see a lot of these teams really compete with each other a lot more evenly than we potentially have seen in the past. And honestly, as well, I don't think anyone was beating Carmine Corp today. I don't think it was happening. But I'm not on the panic train with Oxygen just yet. I think they've looked pretty well, but I definitely do agree that we need to start seeing a little bit more consistently seeing them at the top, especially once we start getting closer and closer to that major.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have seen a bit of a shift with Oxygen, but I think it's a shift in the correct direction. The pickup of Rise made them a bit more consistent. It's not like they're having this constant, dominating play style, trying to always, peak and be on the ball 24/7 and score crazy highlights and don't give the other team a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Now they almost like when in North America when SSG made their move for LJ, it's like they were just suddenly top 4 every single time. They weren't necessarily doing anything crazy, but their baseline just got so good. And that was always the worry with Oxygen, especially last split, where they had that very first regional win. And then you're thinking, oh no, they're going to bomb out. They might have 2 bad regionals in a row and not make the major. And then the question always comes up at the major, which Oxygen are we going to see? And I think that question just goes out the window now. You don't have to worry about it. You know what Oxygen you're going to get. And it's just a matter of, is that enough to beat the the ceiling of some of these European teams now that people have gotten a lot better. And I mean, Vitality just barely beat them by like a few percentage points.
Is that enough, Sean?
A few
Can
percentage?
Oxygen win Worlds with the current roster?
With this roster? Yeah, I think so. I don't know if it'll happen. I think any team in Europe who's relatively hovering around top 4 has a chance to win Worlds. Because again, European Rocket League is a little bit different than North American for sure. But I look at this Oxygen roster kind of like a young FaZe in North America. Like when it was typical First Killer and AJ, I was like, oh, we know the floor, and it's just can they get over top 4? Oxygen, a similar fashion. Like, look, if the BDS series goes a different way, if in 6 seconds left, Oxygen's the one scores, that's a different outcome, right? Like they own gold. It was a mistake. You don't add Rise to a team and then all of a sudden get worse. That's just doesn't happen. So it's going to take time for this team to figure it out. And I think that these close matches are the baseline for Oxygen because one, they're not bombing out. They're not getting top 16. Like we're talking about a team that just finished top 4. Like this is a good squad, and they're only going to get better the more they figure it out. But two, it also comes down to sample size because we need to see what Jorius and Archie do in a championship situation. We need to see how they perform in a grand finals. Not that they can't do it, not that they haven't done it, but like we need to see what they can do on this roster and how good they are because the biggest question mark comes down to we know Rise is going to score. He's always been clutch, even on Moist, even on Team Queso. But we need to see what is Jorius made of and what is Archie made of now on this roster in a championship situation. And we haven't seen Oxygen get to that point yet with this core 3. So once they do, a lot of these questions will be answered. But this is a squad that couple of game 5s or game 7s go their way, it's a different situation. Like they're going to the distance. They're just failing to clutch up. So it's going to be fine. It's just going to take some time for Oxygen.
I think Oxygen have what it takes to get there, and they have won a regional before that was with Oli, so a little bit different of a roster. You have to think with an upgrade they could be close. But refocusing here, I think Vitality probably was the story of this tournament, even though they didn't come out the winners, which is kind of ironic. And, I think the big question mark surrounding Vitality right now is obviously their substitute player, Zen. If you guys are listening and are unaware, Zen is a Rocket League prodigy, highly touted in the European scene. The touts are just getting more obnoxious by the week. I feel like every week he's like an even different version of Superman that I hear. So Zen, the sub for Vitality, lying in wait. His birthday is, I can't tell you. I don't pay that much attention. It's somewhere between February and March, like within the next week or so, or 2 weeks. So mid split, Zen has the availability to come in for Vitality after making a grand finals. Do you make the move? Do you guys make that move 100%? I mean, they made a grand final. Let's say they win next week, right? Zen's not in. They make another grand final. They win. They finish top 4. You guys are still putting in Zen, right?
I mean, Zen is just such a good player that you don't even need to play him for your team to do better. That's what I think.
You think having him on the bench makes them win?
Zen buff, yeah.
Just having him on paper on your roster is just automatically +7 to skill.
It's like, I kind of think it's somewhat maybe when the Patriots had Tom Brady for a long time, and then in his like 15th year here, they drafted a backup for him that was supposed to be really good. And then after that, he ended up performing even more so. So maybe that effect happening for Vitality, I don't know. But I think that's kind of the controversy surrounding the team. But despite the controversy, able to put up such great results. What is it about Vitality, Cam, that you see clicking for them right now that's giving them that success despite having that shadow behind them looming over their shoulder waiting?
I think these Zen potentially being able to take one of the players' spots, it's definitely pushed the current players on the roster to be better, to perform better. You're seeing Radisson and Sizen really step up with their individual plays on offense, like just playing as a complete unit, something that maybe you didn't see from Vitality last split, even though it was the same roster. They know that if they want to keep playing, they need to be connecting on plays. They need to be supporting each other, following each other up, and just in general, being better individually. I saw so many insane clutch double touches from Radisson.
So many.
I mean, it was like he was a completely reformed person. They've all improved so quickly because they have to. And Vitality's a bit of a pressure cooker, but all 3 of the players are not crumbling under the pressure. So I mean, maybe Vitality will finally have the scary 4-man roster if all 3 of the players that are playing now can maybe set egos aside and be okay with Zen stepping up and playing a few games.
Is that
And
realistic, though?
I mean, I don't know. I
Is that
think
realistic?
it may be in a perfect utopia of Rocket League rosters, a 4-man roster works, but I don't know. I think Vitality will want to play Zen, and really, this is probably a great question for Coach Farah. You know, he has full control over who is being played next. So maybe Zen doesn't mesh in scrims for a long time, and Vitality continue to make grand finals, and we don't see Zen for a lot longer than he's eligible. We don't know.
Yeah, and Lawler is in chat. He said February 20th is the day that Zen is unbanned, and he was banned until he's 16. So you can't even try him out or anything until he's eligible for a roster spot, according to Lawler. So that means that he wasn't even available for a trade window or a trade or anything like that. So he's pretty much just on Vitality until and you know, Feminza in chat says, who's Zen going to replace? And I have an answer for that, but I'm going to let you guys go first, and then we'll swing back to me. Who are you replacing, Sleegi, on Vitality? Because I imagine you are putting in Zen, right?
I mean, I mean, it's hard, right? Like, do you actually need to replace anyone? I mean, you have a team that just came second in this regional. I mean, obviously, it wasn't a fantastic grand final for them. They got outscored, like, I think it was like 14-5. But, I mean, they were able to get the win on Carmine Core in groups. So we know that they have the potential to beat them. It might have just been an off day. Like, I see a lot of potential in Zen, but there's also a part of me that, like, if you have something that's, I mean, second place is not bad, especially at this point.
Yeah.
If you have something that's working, making a change kind of semi-unnecessarily, I don't actually know if you put him on the team.
Really? You wouldn't put Zen in?
I just, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's sort of mentality. Like, you're getting results. The only thing that, unless you start to see things, well, a result, yeah, but
their first results. Their first results.
It's still a good result, though. I mean, second place. I would want to see, especially since he can't be signed until spring, like Lawler mentioned in chat. I would want to see, like, if they consistently are able to get top 2, top 4 with this roster. It would be kind of scary for me if I'm a manager of this team to make a change, because you've got a unit that, if they are able to maintain this, is doing well. If you make a change, yeah, you might start being able to get first, but you might start to slip, and then it changes the dynamic if you try and switch back. It's a really important decision that I think a lot of thought has to go into it before, you know, a change like that starts getting made.
Absolutely, it does. I mean, it's tough. Sean, are you replacing Zen? I think I know Sean's answer here.
Wait. Okay, well, what do you think my answer is going to be, and then I'll see if it's actually.
Are you kidding me? 100% I'm replacing Zen. He's the best player in the world. He should be on Optic. Green wall. Green wall.
It's unfair. Unfortunately, that is.
That's
pretty
my
accurate.
Spaceman impression.
But honestly, like, to answer the question, look, you can pick your poison. I don't think Alpha 54 is getting replaced by any stretch of the imagination. No. I mean, it's essentially coming down to the final two. Like, you're picking who you want to remove. But I agree with Sleegi. Like, look, it's their first real result. I think that sometimes teams, when you get a group of 3 players that pull the best out of each other and it forces them to evolve and get better, that's almost better than knowing that you have, like, oh, we could just pick up a really good player and that might make our team infinitely better. It's not like, it's like, oh, if we pick up Rise, we're infinitely better. Yes, but you could also get a team of 3 that just happens to play some of their best Rocket League. For some reason, they just pull the best out of what they got. And I think that we've really seen that with the squad, that we're like, when Alpha 54 and Fairy Peak and K-Dop were playing together, Alpha would pop off and then he'd be quiet. And we're like, okay, is this trio going to stay together? Is this the peak, or no pun intended? Is this the top of what Alpha has? Alpha looks really comfortable. The rest of this Vitality squad, Radoson's playing some of his best Rocket League I think he's ever played.
100% he is.
It just seems like the pressure of being on Vitality, the pressure of knowing you could be replaced, the pressure of job security on a big org, but also the fact that they look like they recognize the writing on the wall, that this is an important year for all 3 of them, and they have to step up, and they have. So Could you replace someone? Sure. Is it the best move? Probably not. Luckily, you have about a split to figure it out. So if they bomb for the next
Yeah.
two regionals, you can make a decision. But if they get
Mhm.
top 4, top 3, let's say they keep getting back to grand finals, even if they get second place for the rest of the split, I would still prefer if this team of 3 sticks it out, because I'd rather have a
Really?
team that has
Okay.
I'd rather have a team that has chemistry, that plays the best Rocket League they play together, than to go to traditional, well, statistically, if we put this player in, we should do better. I
Mm.
like a team that is underestimated, and it feels like Vitality realized that no one believes in them except themselves, and they're playing like it.
Yeah, and consistency is so important as well. I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm a manager, right, and I have a team that's, say, consistently for the last couple of regionals been able to really easily get top 2 to top 4. Maybe they haven't won anything yet, and I'm going into Worlds. I mean, I know everyone's goal is to win Worlds, like that. Every team that's going in, that's playing in general, wants to win Worlds. But at a
Sure.
certain point, you also have to be a little realistic. And if I have a team that's consistently performing at a top 2, top 4, and like say they haven't even won, right? They've had no first place finishes. I'm still sticking with that team because I'm like, hey,
Yeah.
if they can get top 2, top 4 at Worlds, I'm pretty pleased with that.
And Team Vitality beat Carmine this week in groups.
Yeah.
Mhm.
3-2 in game 5. That's the only team they lost to this whole tournament was Carmine. They beat, here's a list of teams Vitality beat. If you can pull up groups, producer Christine, that would be awesome. Team Vitality was in Carmine and Sonic's group. If you're unaware, Carmine obviously won the regional. Sonic's is
It's a tough
that
game.
new roster. I'm sorry, new orgs, old roster. Arju, Matane, Smokes. Smokes, insanely awesome new player, Matane Arju. And then Sa is also a new team. Tho, Toxic, and Mike Boy. Fruity is a coach. So not the easiest group. They 3-0. They beat all of them. Then they run the bracket. They beat the new Moist roster. They beat Oxygen in 7, which was an insane series. If you guys haven't watched the weekend and you're just listening to the show and you can only watch one, I would go watch that series. That's probably the series of the weekend. And
Yep.
then they lost, of course, 4-1 to Vitality in the finals. Cam, what did you think, of Carmine this split? They ended up getting it over Vitality. They're so consistent, but another grand finals for them.
I mean, I'm not surprised. I honestly, after I saw Vitality top the group, as the bracket was playing out, I definitely saw the Vitality Carmine final, but I was actually fully behind Vitality. I thought Vitality were going to win the rematch again. I fully believed in this new reformed Vitality. So I was a bit sad to see them not make it all the way, the full distance. But I mean, Carmine are just too strong. You can always have faith in them. In my opinion, Carmine are what BDS were an era ago, you could say. Carmine are just the new BDS. They're far too consistent. They grind out every single game. They out-rotate you. Fundamentally, they're just better every single time. And if one of them decides to peak, like Itachi's double touch goal where he landed on it again, they can do whatever
Itachi.
they want, and they have the fundamentals down. So Carmine are always a safe bet. And I mean, I have a feeling they're just going to be the 1 seed going into the major for Europe again.
Yep.
I just wonder when Itachi's getting kicked. That is my major concern because he's not French and the writing's on the wall. I mean, it happens every time. As soon as Carmine does bad and you're wondering what's going on, I mean, I don't think they will do bad, but I want Itachi to stay. I'm concerned.
I mean,
The two French and the non-French. I was just looking at the roster because I thought Itachi, I knew he was is he from Morocco? Is that the correct country?
Yeah,
I think so.
I
never
believe
heard
it's
of-
Morocco.
Yeah.
Do they
it
speak
Morocco?
French there?
yeah, he's
Yeah.
Moroccan.
Morocco.
Did they speak French in Morocco?
I
Anyone know that?
don't
Imperialism was a weird
know.
time in the world.
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
French is one of the country's 2 most prestigious languages. All right, so I think he's
There you go.
saved. Everyone needs to relax. Itachi might be
He's
saved.
honorary French, like
He's
how
fluent in
Astral's
French.
honorary as well.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, so he's good. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Yeah. Is Vatira the best player in the world?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think at this point, like, he's kind of earned that title, and it's going to be up to someone else to kind of take it away. Because I mean, the performances just speak for themselves at this point. I mean, he just continues to be fantastic every time he touches the pitch.
Yeah, it's kind of incredible how the results keep coming. Like he's able to just keep stacking up the results despite the roster. Obviously his previous roster of Moist, all three of those players, I believe, are on top rosters in Europe right now with that big disband. You have Joyo, who's still with Moist. Carmine has Vatira. And Rise now on Oxygen. So arguably the top 3 teams in Europe, all 3 Moist players on there. And then, do you guys think that's a coincidence with how up in arms the community was over the Moist split? Because especially the casters seemingly loved Moist. I know I was a big Moist fan. And chat, by the way, you can, if you feel like calling, giving us your opinion on the weekend, we would love to hear it. Add to our discussion. Feel free to join the Discord. We have a bunch of open lines right now if you want to call in and say hi. Doesn't have to be long. You don't need to have a video cam, so you don't need to be nervous or anything. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah, you guys, what does that say about the Moist roster and like with hindsight being 2020? How good and how would they have done in this current element of Rocket League? Do you guys think that they would be the favorites like Carmine in a bracket like this?
My heart says they would still be winning grand finals. Yes, because I think with the benefit of hindsight, it really shows how good and why I feel no remorse saying Vatira is the best player right now, because he chose to forge his own path and move ahead. People wanted to say, oh, maybe this isn't the smartest move. And even though if it was a smart move, no one was willing to admit it because everyone was heartbroken that Moist was going to not be the same Moist that we all knew. But Vatira chose, without maybe knowing what the future would hold, I know I'm a good player. I'm going to pick players I'm comfortable around, and we're going to continue to win.
Yep.
And he has so much passion for the game as well. Every
He really
single
does.
series, you can tell that he lives and breathes Rocket League, and he has all the marks of like one of the greatest of all time players, and he's like right at the beginning of his career.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think Vatira is like, he's going to be our next gen 4-time one day.
Is he the face of Rocket League, you think?
No.
Right now?
Not now.
No? Will he be?
He could be.
Because I
could
think
see
he'd
it.
be a great face for Rocket League, honestly.
I think 1, championships will help. 2, marketing and content game will help. Like the faces, when I think of the faces of Rocket League, I think Turbo, Garrett, and K-Dop. Like not in order, but just like
no
not
app
in
guy,
order.
still?
Is that overall faces or like the current faces of
No.
Rocket
When
League?
when I think of overall faces, like for
I
me,
second that
obviously-
statement, by the way.
Oh, thank you. For
Turbo,
me,
Garrett, and you said who? K-Dop?
and
Yeah,
K-Dop.
that's me
Like,
too, I think.
when I was outside of Rocket League, I still knew what Rocket League was.
Sorry,
and I
Cam.
knew the esport, but like I knew who K-Dop was, and I wasn't like heavily invested as I am now. I knew who Turbo was. I knew who Garrett was. Like we know who Simple is. Even if you don't watch CS:GO, you probably know who Simple is.
Yep.
Like there were faces that just transcended the leagues themselves because of good content game, good marketing, etc. And K-Dop, like content game out of control. The dude's insane. Like those were there was an aura around players, and I think that Vatira has the skill to be that. But I think the big hurdle that a lot of people obviously overlook is just like content and marketing and advertising and how you get your name out there and the ways to do it. But that's a whole different discussion. But Vatira made a really ballsy call, which was to invest in himself, which I give him credit for, because when players invest in themselves and they trust themselves, they're the only ones who know what's going to happen. And I'm glad that it's working out. I'm glad that everybody on Moist is finding teams for success. But that will always be one of the biggest what ifs in the history of Rocket League moving forward. Like we will look back 50 years from now and be like, what would have happened if that Moist squad stuck together? I'm serious. Like it's
RLCS
just
58.
RLCS
Post-game show season 40.
What year would it be? Like season 76, 77? Like that's I feel like if
We'll be
Moist stuck
grandparents running the show by then.
I'm gonna be still screaming over Optic Gaming when they're long gone from the scene.
Yeah.
Old man yells at
Rebels
green
have
wall.
my children.
Listen, I'm gonna be a godfather to those children, okay? I think that the Moist roster was, we all saw it. We're like, that's a championship roster. Like that's a world title roster that could multiple Pete, and they could just dominate the entire esport for years. And it was tough seeing them go their separate ways. But the fact they're on top teams is no coincidence. They are that good. They're all that good.
Yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Your faces are interesting to me as well, because like your faces is more like would be my like Mount Rushmore, like the sort of pillars. Because for me right now, like if I'm thinking of like the current faces of Rocket League, like the ones that are really currently in the spotlight a lot, People talk about a lot. Like my big three, number one, I think by far right now is apparently Jack. I think he just far and ahead of the pack is the current like quote unquote face of Rocket League. I mean, he's killing content. He knows how to interact, and he's getting the results as well. I mean, it's a fantastic combo. I think personally right now, him, Beast Mode, and probably Monkey Moon are kind of the three really big faces of Rocket League right this moment, at least for me.
Yeah.
I want to put Zen on that list because I think for the pro scene, he's there. But for the public, I don't think he's there. So it's like one of those things. Like, I think Cam, or all of us, if we were in a talk with all the pros, I bet Zen would be in the conversation for most notable players right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
From pros. But from the crowd, they've never even seen them play. Like, Appjack calls him the best player in the world.
Seen Zen play. It's all from, like, ranked.
I know, but he's played in threes tournaments, like, and he's won lands offline, or like not Sonic sponsored ones. So
Right.
he's kind of, I mean, he's
gotten
I think,
a lot more experience than some people would give him credit for.
and twos right now is just in a spot where it's close to scrims. Like high level twos is getting really close to scrims with the decision making, in my opinion, with the decision making and how sweaty these kids are now. Every kickoff is a fake, I swear. It's like, and then if you go the high level, it's even more profound. Like they're sweating even more and they're bumping each other, demoing each other 20. It's like a total sweat fest. Like the field must be soaked with the way ranked is right now. So I just think the way players are improving in ranked right now really could speak to how they can perform in threes, which I didn't think was a thing a few years ago. Now my opinion is I'm moving. The gauge is moving. I'm not there yet, but it's starting.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it goes back to what Spaceman said about, like, if you're going to be the face of something, you have to be well-rounded. Not only do you have to, like, have these championships, which is why it's hard for me to put some players up as face of Rocket League right now, because they actually, everyone knows they could have championships, they should have championships, but they don't.
Yeah.
Like, Vatira should have one, but he doesn't yet. The keyword yet. Everybody knows he could. So I think until that happens, he's a little bit of a ways off. But the skill, the content, showing up on the broadcast, doing those player interviews, and how you connect with the audience on the RL Esports broadcasts, that's important. Doing the little side content pieces that happen at the major. I think that's why I think Sleegi's opinion about Jack being
100%
the current face of Rocket League, at least for like maybe the past year, in focus, is just completely spot on. Because he's been in almost everything, and he has the results.
I think Monkey Moon. Yeah, and I think Monkey Moon's a good shout too. And I wanted to use this as a host transition. Getting better at my job. Shout out me. Guys, if we take Christine, can we pull up groups real quick? Speaking of champions, and look at Team BDS. Oh, I'm sorry. It's playoffs, not groups. Sorry, they ended up making it out of groups barely. And then we made it into playoffs, and we got swept by Moist 3-0, finishing 9th, 12th. This is Team BDS's 5th event in a row where they've gone down. So they won Worlds, they came in 1st. Then they played in a regional, they came in 3rd, 4th. They played in a regional again, and then they came in 7th, 8th, and this time they're coming in 9th, 12th. So this is the 4th event in a row now. Bad results after winning a world championship. And I'm going to leave this open, guys. What can fix Team BDS right now? Because they need something. Anyone have any answers? Because I'm stumped. I don't know what's going on.
I got
like, all right, what is it?
Blow it up. Blow up the whole team. We don't want to see them anymore. I'm kidding.
I
Honestly,
mean, you're not far off there. You're getting close.
Listen. Okay, so why? Here's a question that's both rhetorical, but also just anybody answer. Why did BDS win Worlds?
I still don't know, to be 100% honest. I'm still kind of shocked.
Moist split up, probably.
What was like the first? I mean, yeah, because Moist decided to shoot themselves in the foot. But like, what was the
NA
big
team?
reason?
And NA is just always behind.
What was the big reason about their play style? What was the reason why they won Worlds?
They just didn't make mistakes.
Filling.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're filling.
They didn't make any mistakes. Right?
Yeah.
So they were the most fundamental team there. They made no mistakes. They played incredibly clean, but they also knew how to pressure. That was the reason BDS were successful, is because one, G2 played probably the worst grand finals of a world championship I think I've ever
I think that was
seen
one of
in
the
any
worst
esport.
series that they've played in a while.
Yeah, bar none. But also BDS straight up. I mean, look, if anybody else is in that grand finals, BDS probably still wins, just how good they were that event. But BDS made no mistakes. As crazy as it is to say, BDS has continued to play Rocket League very clean and safe. It's time for them to get a little unsafe with their Rocket League. They play very structured, very fundamental. It's something that Turtle and I talked about when we watched the Oxygen BDS series on main. One of the things we highlighted in our cast was no matter what you get out of BDS, whether it's you got a minute left and you've got a goal on them or whatever, if they're down, they're going to play structured Rocket League. They're going to play clean, consistent, mistake-free Rocket League for 5 minutes. That makes them very predictable, hard to beat, but also very boring as a team. And the problem is they need to start making some risky mistakes and not like, oh, and we have negative indictments against our squad, but they need to start taking risks because they don't. They are not the type of team that you expect just to pop off from the sidewall and all of a sudden these crazy 5-man infield passes that go for like ridiculous length down the field. That happens, but it's not consistent enough for them. It's not like we look at them on Carmine where we're like, they could pull up from anywhere and all of a sudden they're just dropping goals on your head. BDS don't have that right now, and they need to start getting a little bit scarier as a squad. They need to start getting a little more carefree because they're just so textbook that sometimes you just get droned on and bored with the lines. It's like when you're driving at night, you just kind of zone out. That's kind of them. They drive at night. And you're like, okay, they're good at that. But then they just zone out and they forget they're on the road. Like, bro, we want you to start swerving. Like,
their habits are too stoic, is what you're saying.
Like, hit a deer. For God's sakes, do something.
Take a wrong turn.
Veer off the road, bro.
Yeah, dude.
What's wrong with you? Drive on the wrong side of the road. I mean,
Just
come on, man. There's ways to live out here.
Like they're not bad. They're not gonna crash and burn.
It's like that meme with the stick, and you're just like poking BDS. You're like, guys, come on, do something.
They're fine, but I think that they need a spark. They need to be willing to get wild and wacky and silly. Like, come on, be a silly goose.
I really thought that with their win over Oxygen in groups, that this was the BDS regain bracket.
I was like, oh, okay, they're back.
Because I mean, they absolutely ran over Oxygen in game 1, and I was like, okay,
German
this is the
amigos,
fast
man.
BDS that was constantly attacking, and it just went out the window in the Moist series. It's very rare to see BDS constantly get counterattacked like that. It's just so strange to see their offense push up and then not hold and just give up a goal the other way. I really think BDS should just bring Mark back, because the way G1 are playing is like exactly how I actually think if all 3 BDS players played that way, they would be fine. G1 actually had a very, very great groups, and they just drew Karma in round 1, which just sucks for them, honestly. I think G1 maybe could be up there with Vitality, and maybe...
Would you make a trade?
Yeah, bring Mark back?
Would you get rid of Seiko and bring Mark back?
What if you just go get Zen?
I mean,
you
Vitality would have to keep winning.
Yeah, say you hope Vitality.
That is blasted. Sorry to interrupt. Like,
go ahead, blast them. Blast them.
Don't ever disown Extra ever again.
I don't know about that.
Extra is really underrated. I'm on that bandwagon.
Really good.
Extra should be top 5 every single list that is ever put out, but he's not, which is unfortunate.
He just isn't the psycho player, which is flip reset into pass into goal or flip reset off back one double. He's not that type of guy.
He's like Europe's
He won them the Oxygen series, though. Did anyone see that? It was the most simple play in the world.
The triple tap that just happened into him.
He just kept hitting it, because all you have to do in that scenario, no one's on the back wall. You have 3 in net. Oxygen, if that's what you do, if you stack the net, make as many touches as you can, because Oxygen are low on boost. They're going to panic jump. Extra knows that. That's the reason they won the series. He was the difference maker in that series. Because of that game 5 play. Because I thought BDS got lucky. I cast that game from Oxygen's point of view. Sean stole my thunder by being on the main broadcast, but I'm not going to get into that right now. We're on a live show. I'll let it go.
I mean,
yeah, but like Oxygen had that series. They had all the momentum. It was reverse sweep scenario, and BDS staved it off somehow. And then after all that, they get there, and then they just crap the bed. Unfortunately, German Amigos threw a whole wrench into this entire weekend by their performances, not only in group stage, but also in the playoff stage. German Amigos is the ex-EG roster that was just dropped. They're not a new roster, just a different name. And that EG roster we talked about last split as being one of the favorites in Europe to maybe win, didn't have a good split. Is Tox a new player for them, or are they all still the same? Yeah, Rizex was on the team last split, so I believe Tox is the new player. and they made it all the way to the semifinals versus Carmine. Ended up getting swept, but that was beside the point. They beat BDS in game 1 early in Group D, which after long breaks, I said this on stream, after long breaks and the same roster, you can have a lapse in that first series. And that was what I was majorly concerned about for BDS. Because when you lose that first series as a perennial roster, it can bite you in the butt, especially in this stage. And it definitely did. So I wouldn't, if you're a BDS fan, I wouldn't panic. But at the same time, your hand has to be hovering over the button because the results have just been continual downward slope. And again, guys, what do you think about German Amigos? That old EG roster coming in, popping off this weekend. Some notable wins. They 3-1 BDS, 3-1 Guild. They did slip up to Oxygen, but then they made a run in playoffs. 3-0 Williams Resolve, 4-1 Team Liquid, and then losing to Carmine. Liquid, I think, was their best result, but overall, nothing too shabby from that team.
My biggest question is, I wonder how EG as an org is thinking about their performance now that they get top 4. Because I was caught so unbelievably off guard at them, like literally last second possible, being like, "Yep, we're gone, goodbye." I'm just like, "What, really? With this roster and everything, they're just gonna piece a second time?" And I mean, they come and get top 4. I'm like, how do y'all feel about this decision to drop them now? Like, I mean, this looks like a really, really, really good team. Like that, I'm still flabbergasted at their decision to drop them. It has to be something internal org wise, because externally it makes absolutely no sense to me.
They're grasping for all the copium they can find right now for why they dropped their top 4 team. But I really think it's the Liquid result is the big one. You were Karma, you were talking about how the first match is super important. Team Liquid in their group lost to Vertigo, the team that got in through quals in Swiss in round 5. They were 3-2 through close qual. They lose in game 5.
Was that match 1? It was
match
right?
1, and then they go down 0-2 to Tundra. So they have to reverse sweep Tundra. Team Liquid were on the brink of completely bombing out of this regional. And they managed to bounce back with a 3-0 against Quadrant off of the reverse sweep from Tundra. And so in my mind, I thought, okay, Team Liquid are back. They stabilized. They're going to beat German Amigos. And then suddenly they just pop off. And Tox, I think, had such an incredible performance in the Liquid series.
He did. They really surprised me this weekend because they played Oxygen, and I thought it was wraps for Oxygen. I thought they were going to stomp them. And I give Verge a lot of credit because he is their coach, and I think that he's a really influential coach when he's on the team. And I feel like he has a certain style with his teams. This is baseless. This is just me observing his teams. But it felt like they were really solid positionally. They sat back. They let Oxygen kind of do their thing. They weren't really concerned about having to put a ton of pressure on. They actually let pressure on in some of that series. And they were just solid rotationally. They looked kind of French-esque. Like it was almost like, okay, Oxygen, sure. We don't care that you're in there. We're going to challenge you. And then we're going to have follow-ups. And we're going to stay in rotation. And it's not going to be a big deal. And that kind of just stifled Oxygen. In the beginning, Oxygen ended up adjusting. And they ended up winning that series. But German Amigos still continuing to dominate the rest of the field. I brought up that match because I casted that match. So I had first point of view of this old EG roster. And yeah, it's nice to see them kind of living up to their, how I see this team doing expectation wise. I didn't see a semifinals, but anything to toss a wrench in EU. It seems like every week there's one team in Europe that comes in and makes a little bit of a run, and then they hit like a top team, and it just gets stomped out really fast.
Yeah, Spaceman, do you think German Amigos will make the major?
Yeah, I think they will. I don't want to equate that to they're going to upset a team to do it, or they're going to knock a top team from being there or make a massive run. But I like what I'm seeing from them. Again, kind of the situation of proving to an organization or lack thereof that you're worth it. We just saw that kind of with Vitality. We're seeing it now with German Amigos. Granted, EG could have dipped for a variety of reasons. We know that esports is in a weird spot right now, and a lot of orgs are trying to figure it out. So it's the optics are never going to be good. But what we saw from German Amigos, again, I liked a lot. They remind me, just narrative wise, of how Vitality was approaching things, with something to prove and everything on the table, and just setting the house. And so I think that, again, this is the same trend we've had for the past 3 or 4 years, where the middle of the pack, respectfully, in Europe continues to be some of the most consistently good Rocket League you're going to get. Even let me look at Vertigo, right? They come from the open quals, they make their way in, they upset a couple of situations, but that's about it. But still, the damage was done there. It's always been
Mhm.
Europe's middle pack. There's always going to be 2 or 3 teams to fight for the top spot, but it's always been Europe's middle pack that has been the strongest in the world, because for the longest time they had to compete with Vitality Dynasty and the BDS Dynasty. Like, everybody else is just going to figure it out. So yeah,
That
I
Vertigo
still go
roster,
Amigos.
Sean, is 3 rookies. None of them
Exactly.
made RLCS before. All 3 of them.
Yeah.
And the coach. This was their first time making main event.
We had 5 debuts, most of them in Europe, but 5 debuts so far this weekend, I believe. And that's just the way it kind of goes, because for anybody who knows just how competition works, closed quals, open quals, when you have a challenger side circuit that goes into a main event, it's one unpredictable as hell trying to prepare for a team, because people just play the
So
game
unpredictable, yeah.
somewhat differently when they're coming from a challenger circuit or they're coming from an open qualifier. It's just teams naturally are different than the reps are getting against pros. But 2, it's not a huge disparity in skill, and the teams have gotten better. Like, teams have just inherently gotten better. The skill ceiling the skill floor has risen, and this is the way it's going to be. Again, I expect a lot of these middle pack teams, the top 4 through bottom 6 in EU, to be problems for North American squads. And that'll be the big conversation for this weekend coming up, is like, how does NA look in the middle of the pack? Because
Yeah.
they got competition on the other side.
I think, it's surprising to see a full rookie roster for me, because of the lack of bubble scene right now. To see like 3 complete rookies, no experience on the team, run through a closed qualifier and make it into main event year. I mean, that's really, really impressive. And
their
all
first
3,
game, they beat Team Liquid as well. It's like,
yeah,
wow,
and then they
okay.
win
Yeah.
Team Liquid's first series. They win. They ended up beating, who's the other team they beat?
Tundra.
Tundra 3-1 as well. Which you hate to see. I believe that's Casio falling there on that Tundra roster. Casio, Rizex, Raziers. So the player they replaced, they beat to make it through. So really interesting there. And a team to keep an eye out on is Vertigo. And I want to mention the teams we haven't talked about yet. So first, we're going to start with G1, who seem to always put up a solid performance. To me, they're a major contender in Europe every time. I really like what the org's doing, especially in NA. It's interesting because they have a European team, but they have a facility in NA. A lot of Rocket League players have moved down to the Texas area, and they've been showing the G1 facility and streaming from there and interacting with that. So really cool new org into the scene. I believe they're new in general. And their roster is Marked by 8, Atomic, and Dorito, for those who are unaware. Finished their group number 1. They ended up falling to Carmine again. That's always the team they lose to. I feel like they get to a semis against a French team or a top 8 scenario against a French team, and they end up just coming short by like 1 game. They play them tough, but in the end, the French team always I feel like G1 likes to stack the net, and it just doesn't work against teams that have rotations like French players do and French teams do. What do you guys think about G1 this weekend? Any good things about them? Are you scared for them? You still think they're making the major? They're in good position right now.
Yeah, they are a major contender, definitely. I mean, they were a major contender last split, but they missed out by 1. I think they had to beat Oxygen and then have another result go their way, which did end up going their way. So if they had beat Oxygen, they would have made it. I think they're in the same spot this split, where they just maybe not like need a lucky bracket draw, but just don't play Carmine in your quarterfinal, because I think G1 will be making quarterfinals, and we will see them at the major. They not only do they stack the net, they just stack really anywhere the ball is. Their second man is so close to the play, and their first man knows not to really like go for the net and make it a save. Just get around the defender, get around the person in front of you, and your second man will follow up, and that's the real shot. And I mean, Dorito and Mark are so quick with the ball. Atomic is incredibly mechanical. I really like this team, and I was kind of sad they didn't make major last time, but I have faith that we'll see them this time.
G1 is that sneaky team for me. They're going to be consistent at like the 6, 7, 5, 4 area. It's just, where do they peak? Like, do they have that peak potential to beat a Carmine? I don't think so. That's my one problem with this team. Like, I think if you put them against Carmine 100 times, Carmine wins 80 to 85 of them, and I just don't think that. I think you need a bit higher in order to be able to take it on LAN or online. You know.
I mean, I think a lot of these teams, looking at the rankings, like I think a lot of these teams, if they're playing Carmine 100 times, they're going to be losing the majority of them.
Like, do you put G1 over any top 4 team right now for me in Europe? Top 4 for me in Europe, real quick, would be Carmine. Are they above Carmine?
No.
All of you know?
No.
Okay, Oxygen?
No.
I think they could maybe tie with Oxygen.
I think that if they played 100 games against Oxygen, I think Oxygen wins about 60 of them.
Okay, BDS?
No.
You still think BDS better?
I think G1's better than BDS.
I think G1's better than BDS too.
At this moment in time, sure. But I'm also like, for me, I'm looking at
LAN
it like
finals. Who are you picking?
At their best.
Oh, if it's a LAN finals, I'm putting money on BDS.
I'm looking at all these as like at their best right now in Europe. At their best, whether it's major or regional in Europe, who am I picking?
Right.
BDS. Yeah.
So let's do a game. Let's see where G1 figures out. All right, Sean, you go first. Name every team in Europe above G1 and stop when you get to G1.
Okay.
Or I can go first if you don't have the list.
All right, I'll do Carmine. I'll put Vitality because I'm an Oxygen boy. I'll put Oxygen. Not saying that they're third, but I'll put Oxygen. I'll put BDS. Liquid had a terrible freaking weekend, but on a normal weekend, I would put Liquid up there. I think the G1's maybe top 5, maybe 5th or 6th or 7th. I think in that 3 range spread. That's where I'd put him.
Kim?
Carmine are definitely my number 1. I think Vitality have to be my number 2. I actually think Team Liquid are normally better, so I want to put them like at 3.
Yep.
And then I honestly see G1, Oxygen, and Moist all around the same level when they're all playing their best. At least right now. I think Oxygen can grow into like maybe where Liquid's spot is, and Liquid could maybe fall down. But right now, that's what I see.
Sleeks?
For me, I mean, obvious Carmine Core is number 1. I think obvious Vitality at number 2. Number 3 is interesting. I honestly don't know, but I do agree with Cam on Oxygen, G1, and Moist being kind of they're all in the same ballpark. Like if G1 plays Oxygen, or if G1 plays Moist, or if Moist plays Oxygen, I think those are all kind of toss-up games. I mean, just off the performances. Like I think on any given day, any of those teams could either have a close series. None of them have made major. I think they're all fighting for that 5th spot, that 5th, 6th area, I think is what they're primarily fighting for. I think Team Liquid and German Amigos are probably almost certainly going to make it. I think that 5th spot is a fight between Oxygen, G1, and Moist.
Right. So there's clearly a tier difference, right? It's top 4-ish, tier 1, and then tier 2 for Europe right now. What's the difference in the top 4 teams? Because the conversation mainly is about Oxygen, BDS, Moist, and Carmine. And if it's anyone else in there, it's sometimes Quadrant or whoever leaks into the top 4 usually kind of gets a topic. Liquid, maybe the most talked about team other than those 4, but to me, like when you get to G1, I agree. You're at like the 6th or 7th spot. And I don't know how to accurately tell you guys why.
Here's the thing. I look at this European collective the same way I looked at Europe, or the same way Europe felt, I want to say early 2021, where Top Blokes was around, where Team Queso, the original version, was around, where BDS was clearing away the best team and Vitality was either on or off. And it felt like top 4 was not so much about all 4 teams in top 4 are tier 1, everybody else is tier 2. It felt like whoever's in first place or the best team in Europe is tier 1, and everybody else is fighting to get to tier 1 or tier 2. Like it was like BDS is clearly the best team, and one weekend it could be the Top Blokes or Team Queso pops off and they're the one that wins the regional, but BDS is still probably the best team. Everybody else is second. This very much feels like, as of now, Carmine Core is, or Carmine, however you want to say it, I don't care. They are clearly the best team, and it feels like Moist or Liquid or Oxygen or Vitality, even Vitality, who just got second. It feels like everybody else is at the top ceiling of tier 2 trying to get into that tier 1 spot. Because tier 1 it's a weight. Tier 1 means you are without a doubt, unquestionably, the best of the best right now. And Carmine is clearly that. it feels like everybody else is fighting for either second or fighting to get into that same tier because Carmine's just so good.
So what would you guys upgrade if you're G1? Because clearly you're missing something, right? Is it a player?
I think they just need
Is it
more
a
time.
is it a coaching thing? Is it a time thing?
I think they're showing that they are better. I think they looked very confident in their play style this regional, and they need to
Definite
go back to the
improvement.
drawing board against teams like Carmine. That's all. Carmine knew exactly what to do against G1, and that'll be a moment where they go back in their replays. They go, okay, we did everything right in groups. You know, Moist, Williams Resolve, Solary, those teams were easy for G1. They looked so comfortable. They were the faster team on the pitch. It's really once they get to the playoffs, what do they need to do? And if you're always making playoffs, that's going to be a big confidence boost for that team. And they just need one semifinal appearance, and they're probably going to have enough points for the major.
Yeah, so G1, eyes on the major. They're in decent position. See how they have to do next split to wrap it up, get towards there. Shifting gears now into Liquid. We mentioned them a lot. We were surprised by the results for them losing to the full rookie team of Vertigo, which kind of messed up their entire bracket. It swapped them into no, they ended up being the first seed anyway, actually. Sorry about that. And they ended up playing German Amigos and losing. So Team Liquid seems like they struggle in that 8th seed spot. It's like it's that top 8, that first bracket. They usually get to that. It's the same thing for Europe. They're in that top 8 area. They try to get to the top 4 and they're just missing it. And for me, I think for Liquid, it's the same thing. I don't know how you guys feel, but I just feel like they need time. They're all young and learning, and I think they'd benefit from maybe some veteran coaching or guidance, which they might have. I'm unaware with their situation. But what did you guys think of Liquid's performance this weekend?
Sad.
Yeah, I mean, not lackluster, I think is probably the best word for me, because they had a decent group, obviously, that trip up against Vertigo, but I mean, they got just flambasted by German Amigos. Like it was kind of crazy. Like the only win they got came in an overtime. Otherwise, it wasn't like outrageous score lines, right? Like German Amigos wasn't running up the board, but just watching that series, it really felt like they just had it in control, and they were doing everything they needed to do, and it felt like Team Liquid didn't really ever have a response.
It was frustrating to watch. I knew I would not want to be in that lobby. I'd be throwing my controller around probably.
Yeah, and they have the mechanics, so that's not the question mark for them, which is like for G1, the question mark for me is scoring ability, right? Like you can defend, can you score? For me, Liquid, it's the opposite. Can Liquid defend properly and hold it down while they try and do their crazy mechanical offense freestyle that they like to play? And the answer so far is just it's too inconsistent. So I don't know. It starts to enter now when you're hitting the second split, right? If this performance keeps repeating, that's when question marks start to show. You know, and a player, I think, like a Tau would do really good on a team like BDS, someone that needs a roster change, that maybe is a bigger organization, and stuff like that makes me worry for this Liquid roster. If the results continue to dwindle or not stay as strong, would someone like an Tau maybe leak off to a BDS, well, Vitality obviously already have a change coming, but there's a lot of French-speaking players that are going to be available coming up soon. And if you have a really good French player on your roster, I worry for you, and Liquid is one of them.
I mean, I don't think I think it's too soon to be calling for Liquid to think about the roster changes or where their players go, or they're tripping up, having a bad time. This is probably the floor of Liquid, and their floor was quarterfinals. I mean, Liquid are a team that I would be very surprised if they don't make the major.
Yeah.
They just will do better in regional 2 or 3, and if they do bad in regional 2, and I would say bad is not making quarterfinals, if they don't make it out of groups, then I start to get worried. But right now, this result does not really scare me necessarily, and I expect to see them in the semifinals next time.
Yeah, this
Okay.
is
all right. You guys are calming me down. I was concerned. I didn't get to catch their series, so
here's a question. This is just a question. Like inherently, I don't have any backing for it. I'm just curious. We've seen Oxygen is a North American org. They're competing in the EU side of things. They pick up European players. Granted, language barrier is a big deal. But do you think we're going to get to a situation where, jokes and memes aside about the French players, do we get to a situation where NA talents start to look at viability in EU but on these kinds of rosters? I know that I'm saying I know
I don't
language
think
is
so.
a problem, all that stuff, but like we've seen EU players make the transition to NA, they find success. Do we ever see a situation where like if Liquid or BDS need a change, they look at some of NA's talent and they say, hey, we could pick someone up?
See, that's hard to envision for me. I'll let you go, Cam.
It's not out of the realm of impossibility. I mean, if EU to NA happens all the time, why can't it happen the other way? I think it just comes down to the opinions of the players. You know, maybe it would help if some NA players open up their Duolingo sometimes and kept their streak up. You know,
Yeah.
maybe that would help their stock a bit.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see it, and I would definitely be very hyped for it. That'd be so cool.
That would be awesome. Yeah, I don't want to close the door shut either. The problem is the market. Because, like,
Sure.
I remember when Mystic was playing in Europe, their salaries now, it's not the same now. We're like 2,000 to 3,000 a month at the time. This was like years ago. And we were talking about potentially him coming to NA and playing for someone else. And the salary was like double, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
So I think one of the major reasons coming to NA, and he also had referenced before that it was a dream of his to come to America and play. I don't know how Europe views America. It's probably different to person, but the way he talks about it is like that America was like this huge dream place that if you made it there, like you got a job there from gaming, like it was an insane opportunity that you could never say no to. Whereas North America asking to go to Europe, I don't think has the same reaction. I think NA going to America is like, oh, I'd be away from my family and I'm moving in. And I think American kids kind of look at it as like not a downgrade, but it's not the best place to possibly be in the world, and NA is. And then and that's for me it.
A big reason for that, ultimately, especially like talking with a lot of people over in Europe, the big reason for that is money, because North American orgs are dropping bags, whereas European orgs are trying to keep things like a little bit more streamlined. Like they're not as kind of willing to loosen the purse strings, whereas North American orgs will be like, yeah, man, we'll give you this big bonus, we'll give you the salary, we'll give you all kinds of stuff, just come play in North America. Like I think that's one of the big reasons that a lot of people want to come to NA. Yeah, because NA, I mean, it's I'm potentially going to change this year with everything that's going to go on. I don't know how much they can maintain it, but for a really long time in esports, NA just pays out the wazoo for everything. They're just like, yeah, just get results, and here's a giant truckload of money. Have fun.
And they pay for your house, and they get you a visa. And if you're on a visa and a working application, you can apply to be a citizen at like, how old are these kids? 16? So you can like apply to be a citizen in the future. You start at 16, 17, 18 years old. You're moving here to play a video game. That's crazy. You're giving yourself like, I don't know.
Do North American orgs generate better content than European orgs on average?
No,
not really, honestly.
Do any orgs make content? What
Some.
any org makes content? So Moist is like a content machine. They don't have any content for their teams. Zero. NRG do tweet out stuff like, we need you guys for a video, but then they just use their own team. They don't really use like they do. I guess they do their own content, but it's on their own
around their team. I think
V1 does too.
As far as like making content specifically around their pro team, I think V1
Optic
probably
too.
takes the cake on that. Optic does a lot.
Ironically,
Optic will do more than I think any org currently in NA. Like it's gonna be hard to top V1 because
no
V1
bias.
cares. But
we need a bias alert.
Listen, I'm just saying.
For Sean.
I'm just saying. Like
I'm gonna get a button.
That's an
It's
org
just
that's
gonna bias.
Yeah, I'll just get a big sign that just says Optic about it. That way everybody knows. But like the top two teams are V1 because V1 was content heavy and Optic's always been content heavy. That's how they built their.
Yeah,
pros.
Dig does too.
Yeah.
Ironically, I was gonna say I think Psyonix makes the best Rocket League content.
Oh, they do.
They kill it.
I'm talking about like skits, like that Rizzo and Sizz skit. That was amazing that they did.
G1,
the one with
G1,
popcorn, Justin, the popcorn, blowing popcorn in everyone's face. James Bot's. Anytime James Bot can get like a pie or a popcorn or something thrown in his face, I'm there for it. So that was great.
What really makes their like the Psyonix content like that extra level is like the obviously like the fundamentals, like the camera work is good. Everyone that's participating in it does a decent job at acting, but they're really well written ideas.
They are. They're
like,
great.
They're actually funny. They are well written. You can tell that they are very in tune with the community, because all of the jokes, all the memes they make are very like community driven stuff. And it's just the writing, to me, on a lot of the Psionic stuff is really what I think pushes it to that next level, because they just it feels like they are part of the community and they just have a big budget to make stuff.
Fun little behind the scenes note. When that race happened at Worlds, when Sizz fell, within 5 minutes of that being on Twitter, we were in the green room and everybody was like, all right, how do we turn this into content? And then Gibbs brought up the idea of putting it on the telestrator and breaking it down. So
That's
like
amazing.
The green room is constantly plotting against the community of how
That's
to
good
turn
to
it
hear.
into the content.
You guys should.
Yeah.
You should plot against the community, because it's great. As someone, so Sonic C, I don't always criticize. Sometimes we give compliments here. I think their content is fantastic. Really, I do. And I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't just say that. I think it's genuinely funny. The scripts are great. The acting in it, you guys are doing an awesome job, you players out there. And the casters obviously kill it as well. Yeah, I think it's peak content. Yeah, and it's great for the scene, the community. I've gone back and watched some of the content pieces, like just the YouTube part of it, to show my boyfriend or my family, because I think it's so funny. We laugh about it.
It's good for the players who need that media training, who maybe are not good at interviews. Just getting them to be involved immediately brings eyeballs to them.
But any teams who do good content, let's go through. Gen G, yay or nay?
Yay. I mean, like,
They're
Jack
getting better.
does a lot of content, but I don't know how many like official Gen G videos have come out, because I mean,
Jack
Jack
no,
is the
right?
content. Like,
Yeah,
he
like-
is the content team.
So that's
Yeah.
a no. Space Station, do they do good content? Do they do any content?
They have a lot of people under the umbrella that do content,
But they don't
And-
do like team
What are you trying
specific.
to say, Cam?
and they support a lot of those people. Like, I feel like they have such a
No,
strong
Space Station is
presence
great
in
for the scene.
content. Right.
It's
they
not
have
an
such
Nord
a-
criticism.
They have such a strong presence, but do they actually generate
Their
that
Rocket
much?
League content.
I
is
think they
not
rely
good.
on their
individual
content
content.
creators.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
They-
where I'm going.
Which is
They
a
do
fine
lot
plan.
They do a lot of content in other esports. If they can do what they do in Halo content wise and do that in Rocket League, I would put them in that tier. They're an important org, a good org. No, I'm not knocking them. I'm just saying.
Oh no.
There's,
No,
if
this
you-
is
if you
not
watch
Nord
their
criticism, to
Yeah,
be
if
clear.
you watch their Halo team, you know there's content around that and the way they advertise it. I have not seen the same for the Rocket League side of things. And if we get that,
Yeah.
GG's.
V1's doing it.
Definitely.
V1 definitely
does-
doing it. I think
Goes
Dig
above and
does
beyond
it.
too, because they got
Dig-
like they do those watch parties. They're putting out videos. They've got
They have Lawler
the-
as well signed, even though he's not like,
Yeah,
they
him
support
and
his
Super.
video making. They support Supersonic's casting as well, right?
I think their watch
Chrissy.
parties are really one of the big things that they do as well. Because like
Mhm.
Yes.
it was such in hindsight, obviously it seemed so obvious, but it's like, yeah, I mean, no one else was really doing it well, so they just
weren't.
do it.
No one is. This is
And people show up, and like
Yeah.
you know, it's good. It's for them good advertising. It's helpful for the people that are showing up, and it makes for good content. Like it just feels like whoever's making the decisions over there knows what they're doing.
like, Chad, do you guys even know that Luminosity is a Rocket League team? Any of you
I
guys
forgot
know
they
that?
were.
Does anyone know that Luminosity is that org is
You guys didn't watch the most
massive?
recent Luminosity video?
Org is massive. They had XQC signed up until like a month ago. Like the biggest team in the world. You don't even know they have a Rocket League team. Furia does a good job with content, I would say. I think Jorby kind of hard carries for the American side of things because
Mhm.
I will be clear. I don't know what they do. I don't know what they do for South American side of things or Latin speaking area side of things. I do think that Furia does a good job with Jorby at like getting the community hyped up. You know, people video Jorby during the Furia matches, and I get a little jealous because I'm Jan's #1 fan, and I don't want Jorby to get all confident and cocky, thinking, "Oh, look at me, I'm big Furia fan." Okay, dude, listen, get in line, Jorby. Okay, I've been cheering
Call
for
him out.
Furia for years.
Bully
Okay?
him.
I was getting chewed out by this entire podcast all last year about being on top of Furia and how good they are and how I think they're the best and yada yada yada. And then yeah, they decided to suck That's not my fault. But they're coming back,
Wow.
baby.
They made a conscious decision to be
You
terrible.
wait
Yes.
till this week. They're coming
Really?
back.
I mean, I
So-
still like. I mean, we talk about Furia. Sometimes Furia, the content just makes itself right. Because still, to me, and everybody probably has their own moments, but the most awe-inspiring, like, kind of chills moment that I've ever had with RLCS was standing there, kind of. I was in a weird spot during the Furia Moist game during the World Championship. I could see like essentially the whole stadium. I was about like 30 feet away from the Moist kind of press box where like Charlie and them were watching, but it was just kind of this weird encapsulation of the whole stadium. And when Furia scored that final goal to win, and the entire stadium, I'm talking like every single person was just chanting Furia, Furia. I was like, this is incredible. This is one of the craziest things I've ever seen in this sport. One of the craziest games, the crowd reaction, like that to me, that was one of the pinnacles of this entire esport to me. Like sometimes they just but just being themselves creates the content.
Yeah, I was devastated.
It is.
I was devastated.
I saw Spaceman fall to his knees
Devastated
on,
about
on
what?
his way to the concession stand.
Oh,
I
when
was
Furia
rooting for
scored.
Moist. I was
Oh, yeah.
devastated. Yeah.
Damn, I wish we got video of that. I don't
Yeah.
want to see Jorby running around happy. I want to see Sean in tears in the fetal position next to him. That's
Don't
what
worry,
I
we'll
want
probably
to
get
see.
many of those this year. It's fine.
I need to hire Sonics to follow the camera around with Sean. That's what I need
I would
to
do
do.
that. That's fine.
I mean, the whole reason I asked about which orgs do the best content is because I kind of wanted to highlight. We had a great graphic come up a second ago. NA pays the big bucks, but it's because they generate the better content. I think. You
RLCS
have
wise
to-
or outside of RLCS wise?
Maybe both. Maybe. Depends on which orgs are in some games. Like obviously some games are a lot bigger, and it's not every org that has a Rocket League team maybe has a League of Legends team or a CSGO team or something. But if you're gonna invest in your players and your content creators, you're going to get better content out of them, I think.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I think the orgs, like I said, this isn't a shot at orgs. This is just, seeing who has put their foot forward more in terms of pure content. And I think, you're missing some opportunities like FaZe. I mean, come on, guys. I realize you're like whatever $1 million company. You have First Killer on your team. This kid, you put him in a title in a TikTok video and it takes off. I don't know if First Killer knows this, but the amount of marketability the kid has is insane.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
He could be
And
the
they
face
don't
of the
do
entire
anything
scene.
with him. They don't do anything.
He could be the
Nothing.
face of the entire scene. if
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to put. I'll put some.
And he
of
doesn't do
the-
anything either. So it's like I can't
That's-
blame the org entirely.
Right. That's kind of where I was going. I was like, I'll put some of the blame maybe on the org because like FaZe is having their own internal problems and like, but they've always been a content first org. Like FaZe is again like one of the biggest names in the history of esports and gaming. But like this is why we're so vocal on Twitter with players. And I'm never going to push a player to do content if they don't want to do it because that's a lot of stress already on top of them doing their job. But the reason we push players who are on big orgs to do content is because if you're on FaZe Clan, we're not talking about you're on, you're on Moist, who's brand new, or you're on, oh my God, what's another example that helps my argument? Whatever org you
Accelerate.
want, well, yeah, whatever organization you want to use. Okay, let's just put it there. You're on FaZe Clan. You're on Optic Gaming. Like those are like the reason we push these players on these orgs to do it is because you're on the biggest organizations that like have ever existed that have a reservoir of untapped potential for you to gain subscribers and followers. Like whenever somebody joins FaZe or Optic, we're like, oh well, they're golden for content now because they can get immediate followers and subs and stuff like that. Like I push these players to do content because if you're not investing in your brand and your future and stuff like that, you're going to look back and wish you did. You're going to look and be like, damn, why didn't I do anything when I was on FaZe? Like your First Killer, you could be the face. I'm not like yelling at him. I
Mr.
sound like I'm
Beast is
yelling.
on FaZe,
Like,
guys.
could
Mr.
literally-
Beast.
First Killer could be the face of Rocket League esports and be like the face of
It's
a young
huge.
generation of esports coming up. If he wants to do content, do it now because don't do like
Yes.
I took a 2v2. I wonder who won. Like I'm sorry, I'm tired of seeing that Rocket League content. Like I wonder what happens when me and this player team up and ranked. Like I want to see your personality.
You don't even
America
have to
is all
stream your
about-
personality if you don't want to.
Exactly. It's all
Mute
like,
your Mike and just play the
whole-
game.
The whole point of living in America as an influencer is like this idea of like incredible isolated individualism of being like a celebrity and being an influencer. That's what like American pop stars are all about. First killer, brother, you can be one of those people. You can be the American dream. All right, like just grind the content, grow the brand, do it. Like apparently Jack is literally leading the way in content for every single pro, and he's not even from here. And it's a good thing that he's here because he should be teaching these young kids
Yeah.
how to be doing this. Like, come on, please do content. I'm begging.
Yeah.
Ah,
I don't want to leak anything because I'm announcing it soon, but there is going to be a tournament in the Rocket League scene that forces players to do content and play in the tournament at the same time, potentially. So keep an eye out for that in the future. I don't want to say anything about it right now, but I'm working on something. Okay, everyone, I'm working on something. That's all I'll say. I'll say.
Real teaser.
But First Killer, or anyone like First Killer, Chicago's starting to do it where he streams like free play before scrims, I think now at like 2 every day. And I know because I used to go live at 2 and I'm like, oh, okay. But anyways, Chicago, he's been doing a great job streaming free play. You know, Garrett comes on sometimes, Justin comes on sometimes. It doesn't even take a lot. I didn't stream a lot when I was a pro. And I really wish that I did way more. And I was someone who was grinding. Like I was someone out there grinding, and I look back and I still wish that I did more. So I think, and I don't really think players realize how easy it is. You take a clip with your name on it and you put your name on it and you put it on Twitter or upload it to TikTok. It takes 10 seconds to format. I know it seems overwhelming, but it's not. I was overwhelmed too when I was a player. I didn't want to get into all that stuff. I just did YouTube and streaming because it's easy. You click go live, that's it. And I was scared of TikTok and stuff like that. Now I'm starting to do it because I was overwhelmed at first. And now I'm just starting to. It's really not that hard, guys.
look at the Optic guys. Look at at the grind that Rivals is doing in streaming and content. Look at how AJ is constantly streaming. Like those, and now you got Com coming in who knows the V1 pipeline of content. Like that is going to be a vibey team if they make.
Can you imagine if I was on Optic or FaZe during the time when I was a player and I was doing all the streaming and stuff that I was doing? It would be a totally different ball game. Totally different. And I love Splice. If you're listening, Splice, I love you. Splice is amazing.
Should be too rich.
You guys are not peasants.
No, the background would just be like a cityscape of like from like
I would have
balcony.
Yeah.
Instead of Dallas being behind me, I'd have, Shanghai, something like that. But
nice.
it's players out there and NA orgs, a little bit of content. That was a little bit of our NA preview, I think, to wrap up the show. We did start talking about NA a little bit, but we covered Europe through most of it. And I think we were kind of getting towards the end, then we started talking about NA. So I think that would be kind of a good point to wrap up with that NA preview. So guys, any NA teams to look out for this weekend? I will start because I already mentioned it. Furia, guys, keep an eye out for them. Lost joining the new roster. I think Jan's the best player in the world. I've said it for a long time. I think he's criminally underrated. And I think his story in Rocket League is actually like one of the best stories you could have. He comes from area in South America. I'm not sure exactly where. I don't want to speak on it. Comes to North America after winning in the Middle East. And like, it's just crazy story for Jan. So I'm going to go with Furia. And you can't copy me. Cam, go.
I can't copy you.
Can't copy me.
We know, yeah, Furia are cool. Yeah, Genji are coming off of the major win, whatever. I'm more interested in how are V1 going to do, how are Optic going to do, and how Energy are going to do. Those are the three teams that I would probably, whatever. I'm going to be very excited watching Energy play because they're getting to the point in the split where it's going to be do or die. How far down in wildcard do you want to be right now? And I'm going to be sad if I don't see them at Worlds. So this entire split, I need to see some bounce back. I need to see signs of life. I need to see it.
NRG. I'll be leading the chants after Furia. NRG.
I mean, they're gonna be needing you to chant because I don't think that NRG is gonna have a very fantastic
another hater
this upcoming week. It's not even like I love this
hater. Get in line, Sleegi. Get in line.
I was front row when they won Worlds. All right, I was bathed in the confetti, kind of alongside.
Who handed them the medal, Sleegi?
Amazing. It was you.
That's right.
But
we're going back. We're handing
they're
them the
not
medal
doing that again. They're not doing that again. I don't think that NRG is going to have a good weekend. The number one thing for me is how is V1 going to go, right? Because this transfer window was bananas, and I'm talking bananas. We had a Com potentially getting pushed out and going to Optic, and then Magic Bear, was he going to go to FaZe? Like all this stuff going on, and then lol, just kidding. Actually, everybody's staying where they're at. And I'm like, my question is, how does that, right? Like, how does essentially having your org be like, hey, we're going to kick you because we want this someone that's better. And all of a sudden being like, hey, actually, on second thought, you can stay. It's actually all right. Everything's fine. Like, how does that affect your mental, right? Like, how does that affect your mentality? How does that, like, does it set a fire under Com and now we see him like at super peak performance, or does it create issues with the team dynamic? Are they going to be able to work as well? There's so many questions just because of that one roster move that didn't even happen. That same thing I have to say for Optic with Magic Bear. Like Magic Bear was like one step away from not being potentially on that team anymore. Like how does that affect your mentality?
We already knew what it was anyway.
V1 and Optic, those are my main two that I'm looking at. I think Gen G is going to win it. I think that Gen G is going to get their second in a row. That's my prediction. But V1 and Optic are my two of like, how are they going to perform here? What's gonna happen?
Don't even ask me. Just go.
Roster moves. Yeah, we know.
Right Optic. Just write it in.
Yeah, just go ahead and write down Optic.
Chat. I'm gonna pick one for you guys. Chat wants complexity. I think chat thinks Cole has a chance at maybe running the gauntlet this year, and you know, Koi roster as well. Adding Knight. I don't know if you guys know, we've talked about Knight on the show before. I thought he was an absolutely Krakow mode Zen type player that was under the radar. And Rogue picked him up, who have perennially this season blown, for lack of a better word. So hopefully they can pick up the pieces with the new roster move. In terms of their standards,
Koi needs to start swimming.
Yeah, to put it that way.
It's tough. You know, there's a lot of it's rough for them. We'll see.
Yeah, so a little NA preview for you guys, and we're going to wrap up the show there. Thank you all for listening. If you're listening online, if you're watching in person, thank you all for watching. If you guys are just listening, you can tune in at twitch.tv/KarmaAH after the RLCS broadcast. That's where we're live. And if you're listening online, thanks for listening. Until next time, guys, we will talk to you after the NA regional next week, and we'll see you then. Have a nice night, everyone.
See y'all.
See you, everybody.